quarantine kitchen, we are going to be making bagels. I made this recipe just the other day and I really liked it. However, there's a couple things I'd like to change, and so I'm going to try that out this time. I got this recipe from ramshackleglam.com. It sounded like a good recipe, and it says it's approved by a New York City bagel snob. So I'm not really what I would consider a bagel snob, but I will take her word for it. So it's a pretty simple recipe. It only has a few ingredients: flour, salt, a little bit of sugar, yeast, water. And it's very similar to if you've ever made pretzels, you boil your dough before you bake it. It's very similar to that process. So the first thing I'm going to change that I did was I didn't have cake flour. This recipe calls for cake flour. I had all-purpose flour. So I went to the store and found some gold medal bread flour. So I'm going to try that out, see if it gives it a little different texture. The other thing I'm going to try differently is the last time I did it, the recipe says to knead the dough for 10 minutes, and I just let my KitchenAid stand mixer do the hard work. This time I'm actually going to knead the dough because it does say to try to work in as much flour as possible to form a good, stiff, firm dough. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't necessarily like kneading for 10 minutes, but you know what? Maybe I'll get a little aggression out, get a workout. You know, when you're in quarantine, you gotta get your workout in somehow, right? And I've got my yeast mixture here, they call it blooming. Now this one, I always like, I don't know about you, I put my stuff in, I mix it up real good and then let it set. This said to let it set, don't mix. And then stir it in, so we'll see how that goes. I really like this yeast. I got it from a cake store in Wichita that I really like to go called Cake Stuff. I've been there before. I'll put a little card up here on the corner so you can check out that video and go see what Cake Stuff is all about. But I really like this yeast. It was not a bad price, and it was at a time where I could not find yeast at all in the stores, and they had some, and so I grabbed it, and I really, really like it. So maybe I'm not a bagel snob, but I might become a yeast snob. So once you get all your dough mixed together, the rest of it's pretty simple. You let it rise for an hour, punch it down, let it rest for 10 minutes, then divide your dough into 8 equal portions. This recipe makes 8 bagels. Once you have your bagels made, then you will boil them and bake them and let them set. Super good. My kids loved them. We gobbled them all up. You can also add toppings before you bake them. I'm just going to do plain right now because I don't have any toppings to get. I've heard that Trader Joe's has a really great everything bagel topping, so I might try that later. So I'll show you the process after my yeast gets finished blooming. Okay, so I'm about ready to start mixing my dough. You can see, check out that. I mean, we have a lot of bloomage, I guess. Now I did stir it in. I could not help myself. I stirred it in and let it set a few more minutes. But look at that. It smells so good. It smells like bread. So now, let me see if I can do this with my trusty little tripod. I made a well in my dough. And to it, I'm going to add my half cup of water, my yeast, and my sugar mixture here. Oh, so beautiful. I want to get all those bubbles in there. I'm going to start mixing. And then I'm going to add about another 3/4 cup of water. Now, the recipe is a little fuzzy on that. It depends on where you are. So I'm guessing it depends on your humidity level, how much water you're going to put in there. So you want to just start adding a little at a time. So I've got my half cup. I'm going to add about another 3/4 of a cup, and we'll see how it goes. So as you see, I'm just going to add a little at a time and stop and stir. I always say you can always add more, but you can't take it out, right? And the nice thing about having to add more water to your measuring cup, you're going to get all of that little bit of yeast that you had mixed together. So I'm going to keep on going. Then I'm going to start kneading this for about 10 minutes. Don't worry, I won't make you watch the kneading process. As exciting as that sounds, we're just going to fast forward through that part. So 10 minutes later, I'm exhausted. You don't think kneading dough would be just so physical, but it is a very stiff dough. I don't know if you can't really tell, but it's really stiff. So you got to work it really good to get the gluten activated. I feel like I know stuff when I'm saying words like activate the gluten. So, but what I do know you need to do now is kind of form it in a little ball and put it in a bowl that has been oiled with just vegetable oil or whatever you have on hand. And you're going to put it in there and coat it in the vegetable oil all around. I think what that does is it keeps the top from like drying out, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it in here, cover it, and let it rise for an hour. So I will show you what that looks like in a little bit. We'll see you in an hour. Here we are an hour later, and my dough has risen. It says in the recipe to have it double in size, and I think it has done at least that. It was a really small, the ball was about, that big, and now we're at least double, maybe more. So what we're gonna do now is punch it down. This is always my favorite part. It's kind of sad because it gets smaller, but it is very fun to do. So if you're feeling very aggressive during this quarantine season, this might be a good way to get some of that aggression out. So I've punched out all the air, and that's what it looks like right now. The recipe says to let it set for 10 minutes, let it rest, and when you feel it, I always love to feel my dough. I don't know, it's a lot less firm now. It's softer, almost pillow-like. But anyway, you let it rest for about 10 minutes. Then we're gonna form the bagels. We're gonna divide the dough into 8 equal pieces, and then we're gonna form the bagels, and I'll show you how to do that. So hang out with me for 10 more minutes, and we'll get our bagels formed. Well, my dough has rested for another 10 minutes, and I divided it into 8 equal pieces now. So you have these globs of dough, and you want to form them into a nice smooth ball. So the way I do it is I take my piece of dough, and I pull and kind of fold in from the bottom. I do this a few times, like that. So now it's kind of smooth on the top, but the bottom's kind of funky. So what I do is I just take this ball and roll it on my countertop. And what this is doing is it's going to form a nice ball. It's going to get it nice and smooth, and then it's going to work the bottom out, like that. So once you get it in the shape you like, you're gonna make the hole. Now I've seen some recipes where they roll it out and then they form it into dough. Or into like a circle. I don't like to do that. This recipe actually tells you to just take your thumb and go all the way through. Now my last ones were not quite centered, so I'm gonna try to do better this time. But you just wanna push your thumb all the way through, kind of tear that middle part a little bit, like that. Now it says to make your hole about 1/3 the size of your bagel. So I feel like that's pretty good. And I don't want to kind of close up on itself, so you might need to pull it a little bit, stretch it. And then you're going to get a pan that you've either put parchment paper on or sprayed it. I like to use these silicone mats that I got from Costco for, I think it was a Christmas gift this past year. They're great, they don't stick. But anyway, I'm going to put that there. Once I get the rest of my bagels formed, I'm going to let them rest for another 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to boil a pot of water, and then I'm also going to preheat my oven to 425, because after this rest for 10 minutes, we're ready to boil and bake, and then in a matter of just 30-40 minutes, we're gonna have 8 delicious golden brown bagels to eat. So I'm gonna go finish these up and then we'll get to boiling. I have my bagels here. They have been resting and I'm about to boil them. So I got my pot of water nice and boiling. Turn it down just a little bit. And like I said, there's a couple of variations on the times that you can boil these. They said a minute on each side, up to 2 minutes, which would make a chewier, more New York style bagel. I did it for a minute and a half last time, kind of split the difference, but this time I think I'm just gonna do it for a minute on each side. I like to do 4 bagels at a time, and I'm just gonna gently lower them into my pot with this slotted spoon. Now, I want you to remember the size, and my oven is preheated, so I want you to remember the size of these bagels before we boil them. Just remember that, keep that in mind. I like to do 4 at a time, that way it doesn't get too cool. All right, everybody's in the pot. I set my timer for 1 minute. Then I'll flip it over, set it for another minute, then I'll just remove the bagels. I'm not really sure what this process does to the bagel. If anybody knows the purpose of this, let me know, pop it down in the comments. Same thing we do with pretzels, it gives it that similar texture. So I think there is a method, I just don't know what the reasoning is behind this. They will get a lot bigger though, so hang on to your hats, because this is pretty cool. I finished boiling the rest of my bagels, so you can see they have grown quite a bit on this baking sheet. Now I don't really worry about them being so close. Normally when I put things in the oven to bake, I don't let them get that close because they're gonna spread. But these bagels are not really gonna go out so much. They're gonna stay about this size now. All right, this would be the time that you could add your toppings. You could go savory like the everything bagel, or you could do sesame seeds, or you could do more of a sweet route. You could put brown sugar cinnamon on top. You know, if you need ideas, just go to Panera. They've got lots of toppings. But like I said, right now I'm just gonna leave them plain. I'm gonna pop them in an oven at 425 degrees for about 20 minutes until they're golden brown. So we are so close. We're almost there, so hang with me. Well, that was like the longest 20 minutes of my life, but my bagels are finally finished and they smell amazing. They are literally hot out of the oven. And here they are. I could not be happier. They're very, very golden brown. Maybe could have gone in for a few minutes less, but overall, let me get a spatula or a set of tongs here, because I want you to hear the bagel. So here's the top. Oops, they're still slippery. How's that possible? So here's the top, the bottom, nice and golden brown on both sides. That's why I love those silicone mats. They're amazing. But listen. Okay, I know that sounds really hard, but I promise you the inside is going to be nice and light, fluffy, chewy. It's going to be amazing. So this is the hard part. Now you gotta let them set and cool. Now you can wait until they're warmish and cut them, or you can just wait until they're completely cool. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to wait until they're completely cool, so, but I really like a nice warm bagel. You can toast these, you can heat them up in the microwave. There are no preservatives in there, so you're gonna have to eat them pretty quickly, but I promise you they're not gonna last that long in your house anyway. Now I was thinking about making these versus buying them. Of course, everything you make that's homemade is so much better than the store-bought stuff. I like to make my tortillas from scratch, my bread from scratch. It's always so much better. And I was thinking how much a bag of bagels costs, and I think like the Thomas brand bagels, they're about what, I haven't bought bagels in years, so I don't even know. probably at least $4, maybe more, and I think you get 6 of them. I made 8. The whole bag of bread flour, which I misspoke earlier and called it cake flour, it's bread flour. The whole bag of bread flour is only like 3 something. So right there, you've already beat the cost of your bagels in just flour, and you can make multiple batches of bagels out of that one bag of flour because it only calls for like 3.5 cups of your bread flour. So I think cost-wise, these are definitely worth it. It doesn't really take that much time to mix and to knead. It's a lot of waiting for the dough to rise, waiting for the dough to rest. So I really recommend these. Cost-wise, time-wise, it's not too bad. Plus, you're getting more than you would get in a package at the store. So I'm gonna let these rest and cool. And if you haven't had a chance yet, give me a thumbs up, or if you haven't had a chance, subscribe to my channel. I like to explore baking and decorating cakes and cookies and doing other little projects around the house. So I hope you enjoy this video, and from my kitchen to yours, have a wonderful day. So here's the bagel. I've sliced it open, but remember, hard, not hard, but just crunchy on the outside. But look at this inside. Nice and light, bready. It's not doughy. We cooked it the right amount of time. Did not do a good job cutting. That's all right. And don't sweat it if your holes kind of go closer like that. If you buy the store-bought bagels, you'll notice that their holes are not that big either. So this is still really warm. I think I'm going to slather some cream cheese on here. I wish I had a little bit of smoked salmon, but we work with what we have. So enjoy your bagels if you make them. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon.